What's up everyone? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Mike and I'm a wedding filmmaker based in New York City. In today's video, I want to talk about what I carry around on a wedding day. So first thing I'd like to talk about is what I used to carry in my camera bag. My main camera was the Panasonic S1H and I used the S1 for lighter gimbal work. The lenses that I used were the Panasonic 85mm 1.8, the 50mm 1.8, and the 24mm 1.8. I would only carry two bodies around the entire day, and that's pretty much all I needed. As for this upcoming year, I will be upgrading my camera system to the Sony A7 Mark IV. At this current moment, I have two A7 Mark IVs in my camera bag. One is filming me right now. And as far as lens choices go, I have the Sony 50mm 1.8, as well as the Zeiss 55mm 1.8 that's filming me right now. And I will also be purchasing the 85mm f1.8 as well as the 20mm f1.8. So you might be wondering why I don't carry any zoom lenses such as the 70-200, which is such a staple in wedding videography. For me, I love the idea of having a lightweight system. So the 85mm and the 50mm are the two lenses that I tend to use the most during a wedding day. The 85mm is more for the reach that I would need during a ceremony or the formalities during the reception. And with camera bodies nowadays having APS-C mode or even digital zoom, like here on the Sony A74, you're able to essentially make it a longer focal length. Don't know the exact math, but when you put the camera into APS-C mode, it's a 1.5 times crop factor. So the 80mm lens essentially now becomes a 125-130mm lens. And that 125mm focal length allows me to get that reach in order for me not to be disruptive of the guests that are present during the ceremony or the reception. So that's essentially why I love the new Sony A7 IV. And I'm pretty sure a lot of the A7 series had that crop factor that you could switch into. But what I did with my A7 IV is that I changed the C1 custom button to make a quick switch between APS-C mode and full frame. The reason why I only carry two camera bodies around when I fly solo is because I find that when you have multiple bodies and you're working alone, it actually hinders your entire setup in general, because now you're in your own way and you don't really have that control of having a nice clean shot. And once you start focusing on multiple different angles, you can't really focus on a nice, clean, professional looking image. And by having multiple angles that aren't even usable, you're just wasting more memory cards, more storage in your hard drive. Whereas if you master using just two bodies, a minimalistic setup, you'll have more to work with. That being said, to each their own, whatever makes you more comfortable. I'm comfortable with two bodies. The couples know what my approach is. I over communicate with everyone just so that they know exactly what I will be doing. And when you minimize your equipments, it's less of a hassle and you can pay more attention to the actual story as well. And with that being said, I would like to clarify that I do bring 3 camera bodies with me at any given wedding. And the reason for that isn't for extra angles, but more so if by any chance one of my camera bodies were to break or malfunction some way, somehow, I have an extra to back it up. But other than that, I try to keep everything as minimalistic as possible and just focusing all my attention to the two rather than multiple. The 24mm or the 20mm that I will get soon is more so to get establishing shots. I don't necessarily use wide angle lenses for portraits. However, I would like to say when I do have a second shooter on hand, I will have the second shooter get wider shots. But I do have to say that the 50mm lens does live on my camera body for 95% of the day. So for audio, I actually use the Zoom H4n Pro. I'll definitely hook this up wherever I can. And for the ceremony, I have this Tascam DR10L hooked up to both the officiant as well as the groom. But for the most part, I just over communicate once again, either letting the officiant know maybe during the bride's vow, you can walk up a little closer, or even tell the groom to walk up a little closer. That might make a little more sense. And have the bride speak a little louder. These are all things that I communicate before the wedding as well, and even on the wedding, just whenever I'm miking them up, just giving them a heads up. And I usually tell the officiant, if possible, taking off the mic off of his collar and just setting it closer to the bride. That usually helps. And yeah, that's my audio setup. As far as gimbals go, I use the DJI RSC2. I don't have the gimbal on hand at the moment, but what ended up happening was I essentially traded in my old DJI RSC2 in for a Zhiyun Crane 2S to obviously load this bad boy on. But after testing the S1H on top of the Crane 2S, I realized I was gonna throw out my back and overall retire from weddings. So what I essentially did was return the Crane 2S and placed another order for the DJI RSC2, and I'm just waiting for that to come in. And like I mentioned in my last video, I really appreciate this light form factor, and the reason for my setup is essentially that, to have a better experience as a videographer myself. The mentality that I go in a wedding when I'm feeling a lot more comfortable with what gears I'm using, it really enhances the experience of the day for me, and not only for myself, but when I have such a positive attitude about how I approach the wedding day, it really radiates that to the couples as well, because they're able to sense and see how passionate you are with your craft. At the end of the day, that's what you want to give to your couples. That sense of, oh, I've hired the right person because this guy loves what he does. And the smallest things, such as the one simple fact that this is such a lightweight system that works so well, is one of the biggest reasons why I moved to the A74 system. And I'm just super excited to see what Sony has to come out with in the future. They're already killing it with the autofocus system, and now with the color science. Their dynamic range is incredible as well. I absolutely love this camera, and I'm not trying to fanboy, but kind of am. Now, the Panasonic S1 was such a lovely camera to work with as well, but with it being a little bit on the heavier side and some things such as the autofocus not working as efficiently as I would like it to, it was a no-brainer to make the switch over to the A74. It's a bittersweet moment, but it's time for me to let go of this camera and say goodbye to the Panasonic ecosystem. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content. If there's anything else you guys would like for me to talk about, comment down below. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.